So in CSV files, CSV is the first thing. But apart from CSV, there are other kinds of file formats also. First, to see a CSV file, typically, let me take like, sample.csv. Why I'm calling it as CSV means comma separated values. Whatever the values that you are working will be comma separated. So that's why it is called as a CSV file. So if you see the values, maybe like I can take one example, sample.csv. It will have the content like this. So you have comma separated the date, transaction type, amount, and description. And there is a date, there is a income, some value, so and so. All the values are like comma separated. So for better visualization of it, in the extensions, we have something called a CSV viewer something. So if you see, there are many extensions, CSV to table, CSV, PSV, like that. You can take one or the other extension and you can see how they are converting. See, for a better visualization, right? So if I click on install, one of that will be installed, and how we need to use, they will mention. Means it is an extension, nothing to do with Python. For better visualization only it is there. So what they are doing, after installing, going to the terminal, go to the CSV, and here Control P, Control Shift P. So I didn't read the extension properly, but in the extension, whatsoever they mention, you see here. So converting, by default, it will generate in a new tab. So convert to table from CSV. That's what you should say. Convert to table from CSV. If I click, it is converting. I mean, it's just for our visualization better. That's it. Control Shift P. I clicked and I wrote that statement. So because of that extension, it is helping. Now you can understand clearly, right? Okay, there is a date, transaction type, amount, and description. But what is the raw file? The raw file will be like this, all comma separated. Sometimes words will have a spaces between them, everything will be. So this is a sample.csv file. So why these comma separated values are needed? So whenever you are working with some transactions, you need to make a history of all. In XML also we can store. Then what is the point of going for the CSV file? XML is good, but it is not human readable. If I give an XML and ask a non-technical person to read, do you feel like they can read? They'll definitely feel confused, like what is where happening, so and so. But CSV is something like, free, right? Any person can read. Means for human beings also it is good. At the same time, for machines also it is good. So that's why CSV flourished a lot. So there are subsequent things like Excel and others came to make this enhancement. But CSV is like more popular. In the same fashion like CSV, there are other kinds of things. CSV means what? Comma separated values. In the same fashion, we can have something like sample.tsv, means tab separated values. Means everything is separated by a tab. So even for this also, if you see, convert to table from this one. You see, it gave like this, or like, don't save. Convert to table from TSV, right? If I give. Now did you see? Now it is much more clear. So like this, for us to better understand, these kind of extensions will help. But to be frank, so whether TSV or CSV means, the difference is how you are separating the values. Here I'm using a tab to separate each of them. In the CSV, I'm using a comma to separate each of them. In the same fashion, there is something called as .ssv, same sample .ssv. SSV means like semicolon separated. So we have like semicolon which is separating all of them. And in the same fashion, there is one more thing like sample.psv. PSV means like type separated values. And in the lanes, we have like uh, uh, depending upon different separated value, you are getting something. What if you want to make your own separation? That is called as a delimiter separated values. In this case, you can have any delimiter. Now, in this case, did you see I'm separating them with a hash? So, so this is like this. DSV means like. So in real world, will people use all of them? No. The most commonly used is Python with a, sorry, CSV. Other file formats are there, but they are seldom used. Sometimes when machines are generating and all these things, so they use it. In the same fashion, so there will be other kinds of formats like free file formats like .dat. .dat, say something like sample.dat. .dat stands for like data extension. So data file. So you can have the same card created like this. So it is like a .dat file. So .dat means there is no particular extension or particular separator. You can be anything. Sometimes some .dat files don't even have a header. .dat is a very generic file format. But the CSV, TSV are like more clearly specifying what they are belonging to. Now, how to work with these files? What is the process? After seeing all these files, to start with, first, we have a CSV file, and if you want to write a file, how do you write and how do you read? So first, if I can take a CSV file, maybe like I will make all these files together into a single folder, like, files, because we can better remember our content, right? Instead of seeing all of that. So I am writing like a underscore files. I can minimize all files together, writing the files. So how do you write the file? So first to mention, if you want to write a file, what is the traditional approach that we have seen till now? We have seen Excel also, we have seen, sorry, XML also, Shell also, Pickle also. In all the file formats, whenever you are writing, what is that you are doing? First you are creating a file and then you are doing operation as you work. In the same fashion here also, when you want to work with OpenOff, this is the same process. If I say like, first.csv, I want to create. So first.csv, so whether it is a read or write, if you want to specify exclusively also, we can say mode is equal to write because I want to write. So, and I can write a file handler, okay, as a file handler. Now for this fh.write, I can write whatever I want. Generally, for every CSV file, we want to write a header. Only then we can understand. In an XML, if you see an XML, so earlier we worked, for every XML, there will be header. So name John D means what? Name is John, age is 30, like that. But every record we need to give, right? Exclusively. So instead of that, in a CSV, only in the first line you give, and remaining will be your own names. So whatever the names that you want to make, that you will specify. And after that, so we can specify the whatever the values were done. So we can do a flush and fh dot close. So this is how you root. Now if you execute it, I can navigate to this directory. I'm going there. So Python so. Now it will create a new file. So did you see where it will create? The file is created outside, which is like file.csv. If you want to visualize, I can say like convert from CSV. Now you can see more clearly, right? So fine, don't save. So, but like as a best practice, what if you want to save the file, not here, but in this files directory you want to save. So you can do that. So by writing to the directory, If the directory is not created, first create it and do it. So, but fine. So you wrote a single file like this. In the same fashion, if you want to read the file, traditionally, how we have done in that way. So B read csv.py. How do you read the file? Same way. So you can write the same file name. So first way is like, with open of same first dot csv. You should now write like a mode is equal to read because you are reading the file. So I can say like file handler and I read the content. What is the file content? File content is equal to file dot read. It will read the entire lines. Then I can split the content. So if I print the entire lines, file content, what will I get? So if I say clear and Python b so and so, did you see I got the entire content? It will read. What if I want only the names or something out of it? I should do much better way, right? So as I have the entire content, can I do like a split lines? This is very interesting. For every string, there is an option called split lines. At the end of each line, there will be a slash and write. It will divide by that and it will give. Now, did you see? Unlike the earlier, this time you got each line separated. Now, don't you think like I can go for each line in so and so print of each line. So content dot so and so if I do. Now, did you see what happened? It has gone to each of the line and it gave it. So now each line again, if I do a split, because it was comma separated, right? I need to do a comma. If I do now comma, see each line, first line wise is segregated, then individual column wise is segregated. So now in this, if you want to ignore the first line because the first line is the names, right? So I want to get the names. How do I get the names? There are three things. Each value has zeroth value is like serial number. First one is the name. So age and carpenter something. So if I want to create, so I can do. Okay. Name is equal to each line dot split. If I do a split by comma, in that the first value 0 and 1, the first value is the name. I want to get the name and I can pass. Means I can have a list of names and I can add all these values to that names. So names dot append of name I have added, and finally I'm closing the file handler. With a with contextor, you need not do the close. You can ask like, hey, names is equal to names equal to. Now we see in this case, what we'll get? You will get first all of them printed because I don't want this one. I will comment it. Now did you see? You got all the things. Maybe for the first line, the name you don't want. So you can get from the names. If you want to skip the first value or something, you can write here. In the split lines, you want from 1 onwards. You don't want the 0th value. Because split lines gives a list, you can do that. Now, did you see you got all the names? This is like method 1 of doing the things. But the same thing can be done in a much better and a smarter way. What you need to do is like, instead of you doing a read and then splitting the lines, don't you think that there is one more thing called as a read lines? Read lines is something which will read the entire content like a list of strings, where each line will be like a list of strings. So you need not worry about it. You can just do like this. Now you see, in both the cases, it worked in the same way. So that is the beauty of it. So, hope you understood now. This is how you do. But don't you think, sir, it is a very tedious job of parsing the entire file? What if you have a different extension? Every time you need to write that extension, right? It's kind of a difficult. Then don't you have like a better way of dealing with these things? Yes, we have. Whenever you are reading and writing, you are doing this much kind of thing, right? But if you want to make the things better, there is a better way using module. So for that, we have something called as a CSV module. If you see the CSV module, if I say like, print of dir of CSV, you can notice that clear and Python C so and so. Did you see that there were a lot of attributes? Some are telling about the dialects, dictionary read, write, dialects, everything they are saying. Means a lot of functionality is there. First, if you want to read, so maybe like instead of getting all of them, I can print a better way, right? Where I can see only the things which don't have underscores on either side. So I did what? Pass. Instead of pass, if I say like continue, if it is there, it will just continue. The remaining will come. Now, did you see? Now things which don't have underscores on either side, I got it. So fine. So after getting this one, next, I need to read the file, right? So whatever the file I have, in the same fashion, like earlier only we do first.csv. And when you're reading, you mention like mode is equal to read. That is also fine. And as file handler, this is also same. Now, when you're reading the content, till now you're doing fh.read line like that. Rather than you doing like this, you can ignore and you can do what? The same file content is equal to CSV dot reader. CSV has an option of reading two ways, CSV dot reader and dict reader. I will tell the difference. You pass the thing and you need not mention the delimiter, but if you mention the delimiter, you should specify. Means what is the delimiter, which is comma. I told you right in the starting that different kinds of delimiters are there. So the same CSV module we can use for the others also. They didn't define like separate module for all of them. Now if you ask print the file content, the file content is not like a string or a list. So it will be of an object. It's like a generator object. So sorry, iterator object. If you want the values, you need to loop over it. From iterator object, how do you get the values? You need to loop over it, right? Or convert to another data type. So if I do like, list of this content. So instead of printing, print of list of this content. Now, did you see? You get each of them like a list of lists like that. As it would be difficult to read like that. Maybe like what I'll do. I do like each line. See how we did in the previous one. For each line in file content. So I did like a print of each line. So, okay, whatever I have. Now, did you see? I didn't do again a split, right? If you remember the previous example, we did again a split by comma and we did it. Now here I'm not doing here also no split lines, no split, nothing. I'm just taking as it is. So I am taking each line I got. So in each line, so I know by default they are coming like a list. I can get the first value. I assign to the name and I can say like names dot append of name. I can define that name here. Names is equal to like this. So now don't you see the same problem that we solved earlier like that? We solved much clearly here. Maybe like I'll print the same value names here also. So here also I get it. You see now I got the values. But did you see that here also the header came name? So in the previous example, what it did? If you want values from the first onwards, you did a column like this, right? Now let me try this one here. So in the earlier case, it was a list that we are generating. But in this case, if you do like this for a generator, it will throw an error. Observe, we should never do like this. If you want to skip the first value, means 0th value, the only way you can do is like using a next. So if I do like a next, then it will do. Basically, what are the file content we have? For that, I need to pass like a next. Next comma none. Next comma none means if it has a value, it will remove. If not, it will stay calm. If whenever you want to skip the header, this is the way. So you should not do like this. So if I comment it, that will go. So this is how you skip the values. And if you ask now, I think spelling mistake. Okay, spelling mistake. File content. Now did you get the content? So this is how it works. It's a very simple way of reading a file. So you need not worry about other things. Very simply you can place. Now, in the same fashion, there is another way of reading from the same content in a much better way. That is something called as a dict reader. Here we used a reader option, right? Now the same example I will do slightly different. Using a dict reader, how we do. So let me take the previous example as it is and place through the dict reader. Okay. So I'm ignoring these things because we already seen the same CSV read this way like that. So whenever we are reading, so we have a reader, right? So instead of that, I use like a dict reader. So now the same content I will change. Okay. Yeah. Instead of a CSV reader, we are using a dict reader. So before even going further, let me show the content and this one. Content and list of the content. If I say clear, sorry, Python D so and so. Now did you see what happened? Initially when you printed, you got like a dictator object, and when you asked the values, it gave a list of dictionaries. Earlier it gave a list of values, right? Now if you see the highlighted ones, what is saying? It is giving a list of values. I think I can remove this one also. Let me be clear. If I clear it, yeah. Now did you see you got a list of dictionaries where each dictionary is containing the key and a value, key and a value. And what are the keys? The first value. And did you see that there is no point of skipping a header because each one is like a dictionary. Now, in this case, how to get the values? If you want to skip the values, so now, do you really think that if you want to skip the value, there is no point? Uh, but like if you want to read the content, the same process, you read or it. I take the file content. So for each line in file content, so print off each line. And you know, like each line is a dictionary now. So if I print it, each line is a dictionary. It gave like each line. Oh, it. So did you see that this one didn't work because it's a iterator object. When it did a list of values, it gave everything. So that's why subsequently didn't give. If I comment that one, then you will notice the difference. So if I clear all, did you see now? Initially it gave that object and you got like a list of all values. You know, iterator is a disposable object. Once you gives, it will not retrieve, we cannot retrieve the values again. So that's what you should be aware of. Then like from this, if you want to get the name, how do you get? I can do a each line of, I should explicitly ask like a key. That's how you get it. So I can mention that is a name. Name is equal to so and so, and the names dot append of this name. In the same fashion, how do you create? Names is equal to empty list and I append it. So the same strategy we have gone for earlier also. I can take names is equal to. So if you see, maybe like I will comment this line also. Now if you see clearly, did you see what happened? You got each one and each line you were adding, but why you didn't get it? And in fact, these file operations on the header you got right. You need not do everything within the context. You can come out also. But why the value didn't come? First point. It is saying, okay, it's not a F string, right? So yeah. So F string I didn't place. Yeah. This is another one more point. You are doing like so did you see? Till now we are getting a list of a string or anything directly. There is one interesting point. So till now in the previous chapters, if you see previous ones, when you're reading the file, you are reading directly, right? So when you're reading the files, when you do a dot read, it will give a string. So when you did a dot read lines, it will give a list. So it doesn't matter. These operations need not be done inside the context manager. You can go outside also because there is nothing to do with the file handler after it. So everything will be read at once and you can use it. Whereas when you're going for this read like a csv.read dict or csv.reader, we should ensure like this. See, this kind of problem will come. IO operation on closed file means this file handler will not give values by default, right? During the process, each time if you ask, it will give one value at a time. So due to that, as you moved out of the context, this file content is from it, right? So iterator objects and generator objects, how they work? They don't generate the values every time. On the fly, on demand, they will give it. So as you are asking that out of the context, so the context when they come out of it, the file handler will be closed. That's why it is showing this issue. If I go inside, now it will work. So this is what you need to be very much aware about the context managers here. So now the same problem was addressed like this also. So using CSV module. So now you can understand in which case to go for this and the others. And in this case, do you really think that we need to skip the header? So what will happen if I skip the header? So if I take the file content and if I try to skip it, what will happen? In this example, I go ahead and ask, did you see that the first value was gone? So we should not skip an header. So no, so skipping is not needed. Okay. So for dict reader, so header skipping is not needed. Okay. For other cases, it is needed. So that you got aware. Next, using this further, there is one more module for reading the same thing. So there is something called as pandas. Using pandas also we can do the same file reading. But this reading will be much more easier if you go to the pandas. What is the pandas? So there is something called as pandas. But if you want to work with it, first we need to install it. The process of installing means what? So pip install -w pandas -user. So this is a standard command. So this is a standard command for installing a module. Okay. So if you want to read using this pandas module, the same content. Okay, this is the command. So generally, pandas is like a big word. As people use it for the most common times, they have a alias. If you go for anywhere where people are using pandas, they will say pandas as PD because that is the smallest convention, right, to work on it. If you see the DAR about this pandas, if I do like a print of DAR of PD, clear and Python is so. Now, did you see it will have a humongous list of attributes? So it's a very big module. Rather than calling it as a module, we should call it as a framework. We can read whatnot, a CSV file, TSV file, Excel files, XML. Now, whatever the file formats you will read right now, everything we can read with this pandas. Not only reading and writing, we can do a lot of transformations. So till now, if we have done this way, and if you have a file, if you want to load, the logic is very simple. pd dot read, we should specify. You can observe, right? What are the file formats? Read clipboard means whenever you're copying something, so that also it can read. So read CSV. read Excel, read Figure, read so and so. So every file format is there. Means even a SQL also it can read. So read CSV if I give, and if I say first.csv, generally till now we get data right. We can create to an object and work. But here we call something called as a data frame. This is something called as a data frame. So you need to understand what is this data frame, type, and the values. Then you will understand a bit. If I clear the screen and ask, so did you see, okay, underscore, spelling mistake, data underscore frame. So did you see now? If I ask, hey, what is the type? It is saying pandas.core.frame.data frame. Means it's a custom type. It is not like a list or a tuple or array or something. And when you are asking the values, did you see it gave like a table? The entire data set it is giving. But generally, when you have a big CSV file, it will try to give the first three columns, first three rows, or like 5 rows, like that. And also, it has some kind of option called as, so the data frame dot head it can give. So if I do like a head, then also it will give the values. Now, whatever you got when you printed, or like when I do a dot head, so both will be the same. In fact, in head, we can specify the number of rows we want. So like that we can see. But sir, if I want only the names out of it, so if you want the names, we can refer with dot name. So the name don't have any space between them. So I can refer directly. Or if there is a space, you can do like this. Instead of like this, you can do in quotes also, name. And if I ask only the names, so it will give only the names. Did you see? It gave only the names like this. But if you want the names like an ordinary list, then we need to convert that to a list. List of so and so names is equal to like this. And you can ask to print the same names like this. So I didn't take a complicated example, very simple example I took. And the way how we are reading you saw. You can see that pandas is like ultimate. But not every time we can work on pandas. If you go for a big organization, like, um, uh, they want like only to work on certain missions. So certain times you don't have a flexibility to work on the other modules. When I'm working in one of the bank, so they don't have an option to work on a third parties. Means pandas is also third party. So pandas is trustworthy. Even then we couldn't use it. So in that case, we should use everything with the basic pandas, Python itself. So be aware, all ways are there. So when to use a what, that you should be aware of. Apart from this, so then we have, how do you write the files? Till now we read the files. In the same fashion, if you want to write the files, let me take an example. Okay, I'm very outside. Okay, let me be here. So writing a dictionary. So same like in a reading, we have a dot reader and dot writer, reader. In the writing also, we have the similar way. So let me take one example to work on it. Say first, I am importing CSV. If I want to write like open or say second dot CSV, this time I want to write. So I will say mode is equal to write as file handler. I can use a writer or so and so. I will say writer is equal to CSV dot dict writer of what are the file handler. Is it sufficient? Because when you are reading, you don't need to give anything. But when you are writing, you should give everything explicitly. If you want a delimiter, that is all fine. But delimiter is not a mandatory. Delimiter is up to us, optional. If I give a delimiter as comma, then it works. But the most important thing it expects is the field names. So what is this field names means? The columns. What should be the header? The header names we should mention. So whenever I'm writing some file, I should specify, say, I am working like this. I have a header name, serial number, name, age, and designation. So that values I need to pass. Either you pass directly or indirectly, but it should be there. After having it, so it will create it. So assume that I have only these two lines. Python f so and so. Okay. So now I am expecting that it will create a new file called as second.csv and value should be there. But did you see, I created a header. I gave a header also, but it didn't come. So the reason is very simple. The file is created by this line, but why it didn't add the columns means whenever you want to do, first we need to mention one line called as writing the headers. So this is most crucial. Means like we need to write something called as writer.write headers. The moment I write, you can notice the difference. C is nothing, right? If I execute, did you see? So whenever you write, first we need to write the headers. Only when the headers were written, we can write other things. So after writing the headers, if you want to add a record, then what is the way? We need to add like a dictionary. Because it is called as a dictwriter, it expects like a dictionary. You cannot pass individual values. You should take these columns which you mentioned. For that, we need to add the values. So the same columns I used and I gave the values like in a single thing. So if I write now, it will execute. No worries, I did in a write mode, not an append mode. Every time it will cleanse and do. I need not worry, it will do. But what if you have like a multiple lines to add? In that case, we can specify that using write rows. There is something called as a write row and write rows. So using write rows, you can give a list of dictionaries and you can write. So now if I execute, did you notice that all the others were written? Now the question is, what if I have taken one of these which don't have one of the column? So let me take one of the column out and I add one more record like this. So will it take it? Is the question. It has taken. And did you see? Whenever the value didn't give also, it worked. So it didn't throw an error. That we should be aware of. If I take like this one, maybe like, this is a 4 and this is a 5. 4 and this is a 5. This time I am ignoring this also. Okay, like this. I have written records. I should ensure that comma is there. Syntax should be provided. If I do now in this case here, whenever I ignore the last value, it gave a comma and nothing. But the previous value also ignored. It didn't make a single comma. Did you observe there were two commas? So it was literally done to say that there is nothing between that. So whenever you are missing a last value, that also could be possible, right? Let me give you one more example. If I give like a 6 and I am ignoring all other values and I have a designation directly. Observe, I don't have the middle values, but the last value I have. Now, will you add in any other way? Observe the difference. In middle values, all were like commas. Did you observe? So that's the beauty of it. So whenever you are adding different values, so how it responds, you can see this. So this is how very specializedly you can work. That's the advantage of going for a dictwriter. So most of the time I will use dictwriter only because it is very clean and you can understand what you're doing clearly. Whereas you can do the same thing with a dictwriter also, with an ordinary writer. So in an ordinary writer, when you're working, we should specify explicitly. So means like I will take the same example. So this time two owners unnecessarily overwrite it. I will make it like, say third.csv. What are the headers I have like that? Instead of a dictwriter, I should write like a writer. A writer will take these two, but it will not take the field names. So it will not take the field names like this it will take. And it don't have like explicit writers. So there is nothing like this. If you want to write, so you should specify that. Maybe that I would say writer dot write row of, even the header name should be like one of the thing like that I need to write. And subsequently, if you want to write like a single record or multiple records, you should specify that. So instead of I mentioning all of this like this, I should specify like in a comma separated values. So in a list or a tuple, you can take anything. So don't take like a set, it would be confusing for you because of the order may be different. So if I give like this, then it will take. Like this, you have taken a single row. And if you want to like multiple rows also, you can do. So if you want to like multiple rows, write rows. In this way we can do. Maybe like for better readability, you can write in multiple lines. Yeah, it's clear. You can see. Say 1. So maybe like I am writing 2, next 3. If you want to explicitly remove something, some of the records, you should write like that. Okay. So sequence index is not integer. It is saying, okay, if I execute now, clear and Python G so and so. But it's saying list indices must be integers or strings, not tuple. What is saying, hey, when you are writing the things like multiple records, what happened to it? I didn't understand this problem. Okay, let me rewrite again. What's the problem? Now it worked. Okay, somewhere it did. Okay, I removed one of the brace somewhere. Okay, I removed one of the brace somewhere. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, if I take like 1, say 2, this is 3, something, it works perfectly. And if I see the third.csv, you can see the third.csv. And here, if you want to remove something or if you forgot or like do all kinds of things, right? You can try. But this time you should explicitly mention. So if you don't want this value, you cannot just take like this, but you should have something, right? It is not a valid thing. So you should give like an empty list. So like that, you should explicitly specify. Now tell me, do you like this one or that one? So dictionaries are much better, right? Dict writer. If you here also, if you don't want, so what is the default value that you want to mention? Here also, if you don't want, what is the default value? That you should mention everything explicitly. Whereas there, you need not mention everything. So that will be done automatically. So like that we can do. And one more edge case that you should handle here is about the different delimiters. I told you in the starting of the program that there are different delimiters. Now take an assignment to generate all of them. Sir, how to generate that? So let me take. I will take now a delimiter which you have never touched. So let me do. So this time I will take like another example. Say something. Say like um, slash delimiter dot CSV something. And observe the same CSV, whatever you wrote previously, the same thing I wrote here. But I changed it to a slash delimiter, that's it. Now did you see when I did a slash delimiter? So delimiter I changed it, that's it. If you see now, CLS, clear and Python, H so and so. Now did you see it will create something like a slash delimiter file? Did you see all the things were like separated by slash? So whatever you have example, the same thing you can do with this. Now with this you understood how to work with a different delimiter. So now the point is, I told you, right, how to read and write. The same thing now you do for all the file formats given here in the list. So for .dat file, DSV, CSV and all these things. Both read and write using that. Next, what if I have a non-English characters? So that is also most important when are you dealing with. Unicode files. Means you need to work on non-English characters. Whenever you have a non-English characters, same like the previous I'm taking, whenever you have like a reader, so csv.reader, I read the content, and if you want to write the header, this is how you write in the first line, and subsequently if you want to add also, you can add. So the point is like, see here, now I added different data, different languages. So when I added these different languages, you should understand that you should give something called as encoding is equal to UTF-8. If I don't give this one, what will happen? Let's see. If I don't give this one, and traditionally whatever we have, I give. Now if you see here, clear and Python. So I so and so. Now nothing happens. In Python 2, if you execute the same problem, it will throw an error because the default encoding in Python 2 is ASCII. And in default encoding in Python 3 is UTF-8. So if you want like UTF-16 or something, you should specify, but others you need not specify. But it's a best practice. If you write, it would be great that what is your encoding. Encoding is equal to say UTF-8. So like that you should specify. And also there is one more thing called as new line. So this is also most important. So whenever you are writing, so nowadays it's not needed new line, but like earlier in the Python 3.6, 3.7 and others, they expected this new line is equal to empty. Because if you don't write like this, what used to happen is it used to generate automatically a new line after the end. So they thought like that is a good feature and they added it. But everyone need to write like this because like they are getting one more extra empty lines to avoid that. But nowadays it's not there like that. They understood this problem and they worked on it. So did you see that you didn't get a extra new line, right? Even if I don't write also or write also. So that was handled recently. So this is all about this module with this. And lastly, what if you have numeric data or any others? How do you pass? Whenever you have a yeah, one more thing is like code characters. This is most important. Yeah, code characters means like what if you have let's say you are separating by comma. In the characters also there can be comma. So it means in the word also there can be comma others, right? So then how do you deal? So how to deal with these things? So for all the things there are like different kinds of dialects. Basically, you know till now CSV, but the same comma separated values they matured a lot with Excel files. If you open Excel file, they have everything ready made, like how to separate the files, how to do and all those things. For that, they created some kind of dialects. The default dialect, if you don't give also, it works. If I give like a Excel dialect, it will treat like an Excel now. So how the Excel compatibilities and everything will be there, it will treat like that. And I gave a delimiter as pipe. Most of the times, so for Windows related, they will go with a pipe as a delimiter most of the time. So if I go, it will write it. And in the same fashion, if you want to see all the list of dialects we have. So dialect means like if we have like the same language, how people speak differently, right? In different regions. Let's say English you take. So the English of India is different from English of Great Britain to English of America. So means the same language spoken differently in different ways. In the same lines, for the CSV also, the structure they placed and all these things will be slightly different. So for that we have Excel, which is the default Excel tab. If I give Excel tab, but default delimiter is tab only. So and Unix is another thing. You see, for Excel dialect, default delimiter is comma. For Excel tab, default delimiter is /t. So that's the main difference. And also the field, so size limits and all these things you can see. Lastly, I gave a lot of information about what all things we can work on it and how these things can be helpful for us. Here, I told about the quotes, quote, minimal and all these things. Whenever you are quoting, like, what is that you can see? Whenever, I think like, so I have given good amount of examples. And also the last point, if you are working, I can specify that different kinds of line delimiters for this file. You can specify that. Say like I have some records. You see now what is happening. I have some records here. So the some list of tuples, and for each of them I am working. I created like a write output. Instead of a delimiter, I wrote something. Whenever you are using a writer or a dict writer, you can pass the file handler. I gave it, and delimiter you know till now. But apart from that, you can also do some other things like escape characters. Whenever you got a space, you can escape. That's what you can tell. Or like what is the quoting? This concept of quote, for that only I told previously. There are four options called as quote all, quote minimal, quote none, and quote none. What do you mean by this, sir? Means whenever you are reading the content or writing the content, for each of the content, do you want to write the quotes around? Not every time people expect it. So if you want the quotes for a different things, you can go. The simple example I can give. So is something like this. See here. So the quote will be of different types. One is quote minimal, means like if it, so nothing was having quotes. Whereas if I say quote all, did you see in the CSV file when they are saving, everything will have a quotes when they are saving. And similarly, quote non-numeric, only the non-numeric values will be quoted. Did you see what happened? So only numeric values they are quoting, others they are not quoting. Observe. And similarly, quote none means like nothing is quoted. So like that. So like the different kinds of quotes are there when you are writing, but still a lot were there. So the main assignment I gave is like for all these files which I stored in the starting. So create like how to work like both reading and writing those files. Now after this, so CSV we have next is XLS files. XLS files. XLS. What is this XLS file? In fact, if you see the XLS, so Excel files you have heard about it, right? Excel. In Excel, there are two types of Excels. One is like open Excel. Open Excel, right? Open Excel means like if you are aware, there are some softwares to work on. Something like LibreSoft. So LibreOffice, have you heard? LibreOffice, Apache Office, like that. Apache Open Office. Yeah, Open Office. Similarly, so we have like a Word document, Excel also, ordinary MS Excel also. That is also one kind of Excel. Microsoft Excel, so will store like a so dot XLSX like that. So like that, different kinds of Excels are there. To work on these Excels, we have different modules. So the most important modules are like OpenPy Excel and like XLRB and like XLSX Writer. By the name itself, it will do only writing. But these two can do the writing and reading also. These are like most popular. So first, if I go with the first module, like Open Excel, which is like very famous whenever you're working. Open Excel. What did this Open Excel? How we can do with it? Say if I want to write the file, I can do like a write Excel. In the writing Excel, first I need to work on this module. So pip install Open Excel. So this is a module which we need to do by default. So if I do like pip install, so Open Excel, it will install that module and we can work with it. So what is the purpose? To create Excel file. Hope you know the difference between CSV and Excel, right? So we can work on it. Now, if I want to create, so maybe right, I will work on something like this. Import Open Excel. Using Open Excel, if you want to create, first we need to create a workbook. So workbook is equal to Open Excel dot workbook. I create a workbook. And for that workbook, in Excel, what is the difference between Excel and an ordinary file is Excel will have a files. If I open any Excel locally for me, you will understand. You see, this is a typical Excel. Excel will have both files. So you see, it is not like a CSV. Excel will is like a, you can think like a combination of multiple CSV files. You can think, but that's not a correct analogy. But just to tell you, did you see that in an Excel there is something called a sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3. If you create one more sheet 4, sheet 4 like that, means in an Excel file, it's like multiple sheets of files will be there. So first we need to create an Excel workbook. In that we need to write the sheet, which sheet you want to work. By default, the sheets will be numbered like sheet 1, sheet 2 like that. And if you want, you can give a name also. And within that, you need to write the content. Whenever you are writing a content, we should specify the column row like that. In a CSV file, you write like the row directly. Whereas here, you should specify. Did you see when I highlight, it is saying D7, means in D column, 7th row. If I say something else, you say like, I21, it will say D9. So means for rows, they have like alphabets, sorry, rows, they have numbers, columns, they have alphabets. If I do the combination, I get to that particular thing. Whenever I want to work, I need to give both of them. Okay. So first I need to create a worksheet. So after creating the workbook sheet, so we need to select a sheet, which sheet you want from this. So I can take the sheet is like the active sheet within it. By default, the sheet one would be active. So that one I need to take. So from that sheet, I need to add any values to it. I showed you previously, like if you want to add the content, we should not say like add a row or like add so and so, add a column. We should give the specific, row and column together. So that is called as a cell. If I give the cell value, we can add to that cell. If I specify here, you can observe carefully that I mentioned what I want. So I mentioned like A1, A2, A3, B1, B3, like that I specified. So in those rows, in those columns, these are called as cells. In that cells only it will add. Did you observe that? So it is adding all of them in that particular order. Now, after doing it, we need to finally give the path where you want to save. So if you want to save, so for this workbook, what are the workbook is there? We should give the file name. Maybe like, first dot. So till now dot Excel so and so, right? There is something called as XLSX. You can write XLS or XLSX. XLSX means Microsoft Excel. XLS means like, so open Excel. That's the only difference. So now if I take to this workbook and do, I think it works. Okay, first FIRST. So now I need to navigate to the directory, CD, Excel. So open Excel, Python, so and so. Now it will create a new file under it. It should create a new file called as first.excel. Now did you see a new file called as first.excel came? If I say, so ordinary text files it can open, but Excel is a structured file. Observe, structured files can't be opened on an ordinary text file. If someone asks what is the simplest example of structured and unstructured, the simplest thing is that structured files can't be seen directly on a notepad. Then how to see this, sir? Either we need to open in Excel, or we have even in this extensions also, there is something called as Excel viewer. You can click on that, you can install, same like how we have done previously CSV viewers. You can work with that. So for everything, so they will mention how to use. So we should understand that. So if you use always or anything, you can specify and it will do. So if I close it and open again, I have installed this one, right? I opened it. You see, automatically it is opening. So did you see at what all cells I have added? It is not like rows or columns. At what cells I added, those cells only you got it. What are the thing? And did you observe what data types I added? I cannot add anything like an ordinary integer float till now I can add, but I cannot add like collections like a list tuple set. Everything should be connected to string. Only then it can be added. So that is how you create a small file. In the same fashion, if you want to like create a sheet, so how to do? Maybe like I will create like a structure. So if I work this time, let me create like a file, create a sheet. If you want to create a sheet, what is the process? This time, let me create like a function such that we can reuse it. So I can say like create a workbook. The process is simple. Open pyexcel.workbook. That's what you are doing. In that, if you want to see the sheets, by default, how many sheets are there? It will give. By default, there will be only one sheet. But in Excel, they are creating like 2, 3 right now, some slight change. But by default, there will be only one sheet. That sheet name it will give. So, and for that, if you want to add, if you want to, previously what we did, we selected the active sheet and you added the values. But if you want to create your own sheet, you can do like this. Same workbook.create sheet. Then the existing and new one, two ones will be there. So if I say Python B so and so. Now did you see? Earlier there is only one sheet. Now there are two sheets, sheet and sheet one. And if you want to add one more sheet also, you can add. So maybe like, if you want to insert a sheet, you can specify that. So insert a sheet. So workbook.create sheet of index equal to 1 I give. So at the first position I want to add. Till now 0th position, first position is there. But at first position I want to add one more. Means the existing value was shifted by one position. It's like a typical insert operation. So now if you see, there will be 3 sheets right now. But after doing all of that, is the file present? No. Means whatever you do, finally we need to pass the path. So here I gave one file name. For that file name only I want to do. So in that path, whatever I gave in the thing, I am using that. Now if you see, after doing this operation, a new file was created and we can visualize it. Sometimes it would be hard. It is couldn't do, right? You see now, it is facing some issue. So this viewer for reading it, but it will create. Oh, we created sheets, but we didn't add the content, right? That's why it is not showing. So this is how you create the sheets. Next, after creating the sheets, if you want to do the operations like deleting a sheet, so all those things we can manage. Say if I want to delete the sheets, I can take the operation like this. You see, I took the open pyexcel.worksheet. In that I did a create sheet. So then create sheet of index. At first position I want to add one more, same like in the previous. And I'm asking the list of sheets. And I can delete a specific sheet. So I can index a sheet by the sheet name or like the position also, right? In either ways I can take and I can delete. And finally I can save it. So like that I can clear a sheet also. Say clear and see. See now. So totally in this workbook, initially how many sheets are there? That sheets are like this. And subsequently you removed one of the sheets. So that's how you created. So this is what. In the same line, if you want to delete a sheet, like if you want to remove a sheet, so delete a sheet means is different from removing a sheet. So that also we can specify. So maybe like here itself, I will specify that too. So both if you write in a single line, so you can remember better. I'm writing everything like a function so that you can better remember, right? So you can see. So here also we can have a remove sheet and like this we have. If I want to remove a sheet, I've specified that. And similarly in the delete sheet also I wrote it. Yeah. Yeah, see here. So in the remove sheet, what I'm doing, so it is saying like in functions, when you're creating between two functions, there should be two white spaces. That's what pipette says. That's what it is all about. So like that, you can see how it is removing. You can observe the difference of between them. And if you want to like insert the values, as I told, every time we should be aware of the row column convention, where the rows will be with numbers, columns will be with values. So it means alphabets. We should do like that. So same like how we did in the first example, every time like that. But this is a selective import. I took like a workbook and active sheet. For that sheet, I'm adding the values, and I can insert a specific column also. So means at IDX, for that column, I want to add. So insert two rows starting at the second row. So means like insert rows. So at this particular values. So like that, you can specify. So maybe this time I'm adding the content, right? So we can visualize. So Python E so and so. So it will create a sheet E. You can visualize it. Did you see? The after one, so the two rows were skipped, and after that it was added, right? So that's what I want to tell. So skipping like one, so inserting after the starting of the second line. Insert a column. So it inserted that column and then added. So initially you have I1 so and so. Then like you told to insert a column. So the first column was like another column was inserted at this position. And similarly for the rows you added. So you mean skip like two rows after the A3 and you read it. So at what positions you want, how many rows you want to add. So you have added in the same fashion. So you can, yeah, there is one thing like, delete rows, iterating rows. Yeah, this is more important. Let me take these options. Yeah. Whenever you have an Excel file, you can do like this. Yeah. You see, whenever you have a loading a workbook, so this is another thing. Whenever you are creating, you are doing like a workbook and you are taking an active sheet and you are adding. But if you have an existing file and if you want to parse it, this is how. For the load workbook, we need to use. So load workbook, you should give the file path. It will load it. In that, they again the same process, getting the active sheet. And in that sheet, you can iterate. But if you have like multiple sheets, you can in that workbook, go to the particular sheet. And in that sheet, you can iter rows. Each row it will give. So when it is giving, so in the rows, you are saying what is the minimum row, what is the maximum row. Means you gave a boundary also, what values you want to iterate. So it will iterate like that. And also when in the workbook is there, we can give like the maximum rows, because here you should specify maximum rows and everything. So if you give like a max rows, it will tell what is the total number of rows in that sheet. So it would be making your life easy when you are working. So at the same time, so if you want like more other things like charts and others, so that also can be done. Hope you know that even in so this also we can add like charts, text, and everything. So first, if you want to work on like text wrapping, so maybe like I'll take a text wrapping if you want to work. So there is an options. You see, I have taken an option. So maybe like instead of this big path, I can take, yeah, wrap text. Okay, wrap text if I give. So the file it will take. So Windows path only you need like that, but I give like this. You see, I'm using that Win32com. This is one of the example in Windows to generate where it will create a Excel file and it will give a password also. Generally, when you go for any bank transaction, they give anything, they will have the password, right? So I'm not sure whether it works in this Linux environment because it's a Win32com that should be there. So it is saying like Win32com is not there, but let me give a try. Pip install. So Win32com. Generally in Windows only it works. Yeah, it's not working. So if you want to work on it, so you need to go there in Windows. But so you cannot do the password protections and others, but others you can do, right. And similarly, if you want to make like charting, so how to create a chart. Hope you know that even Excel also we can add charts. So for working on charts also, OpenPyXL came with library like charts like bar chart and others. You can use this example. I have some data set and I'm adding to it and I'm creating a bar chart and adding the values. Now, if I clear the screen and Python I so and so. So it is generating. Now, if I see this XLSX file, did you see that it generated a bar chart? So seems like this particular viewer is not showing that bar chart. But if you open in an ordinary Excel file, it will work. I should download because it's a code space, right? I should download and locally do it. So you can give a try. And similarly, if you have a CSV, so this is the most common example any developer expects. Means like, what if, sir, I have a CSV file and I want to convert to an Excel? If you have like a CSV and convert to an Excel, we should specify that path. So wherever the file is there, you give the path. Maybe like I have a file which is somewhere here in the CSVs. So I have like a first.csv which I want to convert. I can take the relative path. See here, whenever you are in a project, you can take a relative path. Path means like it will give anything. But if I want a relative path, I can specify that. So if I specify the relative path, it is saying that, in this directory. But did you see that how relative you are? You are somewhere here. From here, if you want to go to the directory, how do you go? So one level above, two levels above, you go. So two levels above, you should go and get it. Means one level above. Simple. In a terminal, you think how you do. If I do like ls-l, how I will get only the files, right? So only the files in the current directory. Or like, simple, clear. So clear, if I do ls, I get only these files. But if I do ls, current directory means again the same thing. If I do one level up, it will go one level above. If I give like /2 two levels above, in that two levels above, I want to go to the again XML. So C Excel. So within this, sorry, I need to go to what? CSV, right? So D CSV. You see, within the CSV, it is giving the files. So within that, if you want to get the first file, so simple, the path you need to give like .csv. So first .csv, I can take this file like this. So if you want to open a file in the terminal, cat command. So file.csv, sorry, first.csv. So did you say you got this same path you need to give as it is whenever you want to work. So because if you want to give from root, it would be difficult, right? So if I give like this, and if I want to convert to myfile.excel, now it will convert. So I creating like functions so that we can reuse clearly. Now where I need to go in my directory. So am I again in the same directory? Yes. Python. So JSON. Now we need to create. It is saying that I cannot go to this directory. So because I am somewhere, from this I couldn't navigate. No such file or directory. So one level above or two levels above. So again, there is a way to do that also. But if you give the entire file path also, you can do. If I give the entire file path also, I can give. So I gave the entire file path from the root onwards. Generally in Linux, there will be root. So like drivers. So here it is like this. If I give, it is saying that to Excel is missing a positional argument Excel file. So to Excel. So where is this to Excel? So which line? So line 22. Okay, I didn't give a comma. Yes, I didn't give a comma at the end. You see now, it should work. It's perfectly working. So I don't know why they imported Excel. So fine. If you see now in this particular file, there is a myfile.excel. So whatever the CSV file is there, it was converted. But the point is like when you have like multiple CSV file, if you want to integrate, that is an assignment for you. Take like multiple CSV files and add like multiple sheets on the same CSV Excel file. So take that as an assignment. And in the same fashion, if you want to work with another's, you have did this much struggle, right? But if you want to work, so very cool. So there is one more module. So as we know, pandas. I'm not telling others, but like, pandas directly. So in pandas also, we can do the same thing. How cool we can do in pandas, I will tell. So in a pandas, if you want to read a CSV file or something, you can do very fastly. So if you want to write also, it's easy. Say Okay. So first, if I have one file, maybe like I'm taking the previous first dot or anything. Okay, here we created one my file, right? Let me copy this file and paste here in this Excel folder. Or like we can refer to the same example also. If you have the file, I copy the file and I want to read it first. So first, if you want to read the file, import pandas as PD. So as told, right, we create like a data frame. So PD dot read, which one? It's an Excel, right? In Excel file, what are the Excel file is the entire path I have. I'm giving it so that it will not have any problem. And I'm asking to print the df dot head. If I give, now we can notice that. Okay, clear the screen. Pandas, so and so. Now, did you see it will go read that file and it entirely displaying? You need not worry about what it is and so and so. So you give a file name, just it will read from it. That's it. I didn't give anything, just I gave the file format. If the file is locally also, we can create. And similarly, if you want to read the file, so write a file, write the Excel file means how to do. Maybe like I will write a empty line here, just to show. If you want to write a file, so simple logic, what are the file you have? Maybe like you need to have some content. So I have some content. I create a data frame. So, and I do a dot to Excel. That's it. What is this index equal to false? I will tell afterwards. But like if you see now, clear screen, clear and so and so. In one line, you can see. So this is how first it read the existing file. And this is how it created a new file. And if you see the output, did you see that it is an Excel with all the content? So don't you think it's easy? So comparatively, so pandas is like the main thing here. You can read any file using pandas. So that's a beauty. Next, so same like this, we have others like XLS writer also. But like XLS writer is mostly for writing only. So with different options. But this is all mainly we need to understand. Next to work with, we have something called as JSON. Yes, JSON. JSON is a file format, so which makes our life easy. So to be understanding the JSON file format, there is something called as JSON.org. What is this JSON.org? Means like, first of all, we know in Python we have what are the data types, basic data types like int, float, long, etc. And in Python we have some data structures called as a list, tuple, set, and a dictionary. And each has one kind of potential way of doing. And so dict is like storing everything like a key values like that. Every language will have like these data structures, right? So in the same fashion, JavaScript also have these data structures. One such thing is JavaScript object notation. So in JavaScript, the object notation is one kind of way where they will note it. If you see the overall programming total contributors, mostly you will see JavaScript people. Whether it is Node.js or front-end development, everything with JavaScript only. So most of the people they are using. So and so point is like they want one format where everyone can interchange. So finally they fixed that JSON is ideal and they have gone. So it also has all the data types because like Python, even JavaScript also has like objects, arrays, numbers, all these things. How they are handling, how they are storing. So that's the reason. So nowadays for every REST APIs and everything they have JSON. I would say JSON is the king of serializations at this stage. So with JSON, literally we can do anything. So let me give a couple of examples. If I take like the examples as say countries.json. So the values will be like this, that you see here. If I the same content, you see, it's very big JSON. But if the same thing need to be stored in an XML, just imagine for everything there should be a name twice coming opening tag, closing tag. So for everything we should do like that. But in a CSV file, everything header only one time it will come. But when you're reading, you can do. But in a JSON, everything is in a structure. whenever you get, you can store even like this also. That's why if you go to MongoDB, they store like this only. Document DB. Have you heard about document DB? Means they store like a document. So even like so wherever you go. So that's a beauty. So it all created two different things. And if I go for like one more example, so if I go with like a country code or something, if I go with a country codes, you see now, so I create. So the point is like whenever you have a JSON, every JSON will have a structure. The point is like it will store everything like in a array. There is no, this is nothing like a list. If there are square braces, there won't be a tuple or anything. Just imagine what are you give, it will store like this. So to first start with this JSON files, we need to understand how to work with this JSON. So if I can start with, okay, so let me take a working with JSON.ipynb. So we forgot to work with ipynb for quite some time. Let me start again. Okay. So here to work with JSON, we need to work on something called a JSON module. So JSON is a module which will help. There is one more thing called a simple JSON. So simple JSON in Python 2. The same simple JSON is called as JSON in Python 3. So you need not worry. And if I go for the DAR of JSON, you see one is like a decode error, so errors and others. But if you see like codex, load, and dump. Hope you remember the structure we have seen in the pickle in the starting. Pickle has one common structure, I told. Whenever you are doing a reading, dump s, load s. When you want to convert from Python object to this flattened format, you do a dump concept. So from Python object, if you want to convert to a serialization, that is dump to a file or dump to a string. Similarly, from file, if you want to load to Python object, load and load-s. This is what you know. The same structure, everything follows. Even JSON, next you file for YAML, everything works. So what is a JSON? JSON can take whatever you give and it will convert. Maybe like first I am creating one dictionary. It's a typical dictionary, right? I am creating and I'm asking, hey, what is a book? So whatever it gave, it will take and it is giving like a dictionary. Now for this book, I am asking again, hey, can you give me what is the type? It is a dictionary again. So now if you want to create a serialization, so either you can dump to a JSON string or JSON file, right? So JSON dot dump s of what are the book I have. If I do, so did you see that the entire content came to like a string? So so if I say book str, it will be. So in which case we use whenever you want to give an HTTP response, like if you want to give a string, that also we can use, or whenever you want to store locally also we can use. But if you want to load back from it, so load s, if I do a load s of this book string, if I give, it will load back whatever you got. In the same fashion, if you want to dump to a file, so we need to do, I will create a ebook.json. I need to write a write format, and within that I need to do. So this is what even I get confused a lot. Dump is one thing, and within that dump, what we need to push. So book is my dictionary. I want to convert. So the file handler. Every time I also get confused whether file handler first and book next or like that. But this is fine. So if you do, it will create a file and it will store the content. So if I do like in fact cat ebook.json, did you see in that file how it is storing? So maybe like that ebook.json, if you see what are the content is there, content came like all in a single line rather than doing like in a multiple lines. So it's okay. But in the process, we can also do in much better way also. So if I say here, it will have, there is something like a sort keys. So these are options. Sort keys equal to true. So when you are storing, if I do like a sort key is equal to true, so if again the same book I do, and if I print it, now did you see? It is sorting the keys by the author. Now did you see the output? Earlier title came first, but now author came first, right? So that is how it's working. And in the same fashion, so for this dump, if you hover on it, it will give all options. If I give like a indentation, separators and others, so all of that. So if I give like say indent equal to some 4, if I give like indent equal to, oops, sorry. So indent is equal to some 4 if I give. If you see now, it will do it. And if I open that file, cat, so ebook.json, you can notice it. Now, did you see? The moment I gave indentation, everything came. Before each key, you want like indentation. That indentation I gave 4. And within that also I want 4 indentations. Like that you got. Now, did you all understand how I am writing? When you're storing like a string, you don't need all these things. But if you're storing like a file, all these things are needed. So next, okay, sir, I have stored. How do I load the data back again? For again deserialization, you need to do. So for deserialization, you take the book, observe very carefully. You need to do RB. So it's like, if it's not a binary string, so you can do write also. But if there is a binary, if you wrote, you can read like that. So in the same fashion, when I'm reading, I need to load from it. So for loading, I need not pass anything. Outside, I need to give like a data. So whatever the data is there, I can use it directly. Now, did you see? The entire data I got like a dictionary back again. If I take like, type of data, it is a dictionary again. So you have a dictionary, you placed all the things. Okay. So now, similarly, if you have some other data, some other data type you have. So can you take all other data types also? So let's see that. To understand about it, so I showed in the official site that it has only certain data types. Not all data types it has. So it have like a array, object and others. It don't have a tuple. What if you give a tuple? So let me show that. So working in different data types for the serialization. As you know, like JSON dump and dump as this concept is clear, right? I am taking, see here in this example, I am taking like 3 records and each of the record has some values. And did you see how it is taken? So maybe like, instead of that, I will make an ordinary print. So like this. So it's clear. JSON.dump as is a string. Basically string we cannot see clearly. So even in string also we can specify, okay, like indent equal to say 2 if I mention. Did you observe how it is coming? So like this. The slashes are all coming. So if you want to see better, I will write a print. Then you can see clearly. Observe carefully what you have. You have given the values like a true. But did you see how it is taking like true? So, and if you give like any other data type, it is converting. Means if you give anything like a string, fine. But if you give like a true or false, it is not taking like that, right? That you understood. Whenever you give, it is converting to its own format. And like, so what all data types? If I take like a tuple, so I will try taking a tuple and convert to this. So tuple means if I don't write explicitly also, it is a tuple, right? If I don't make a brace, any brace, by default, it's a tuple. Did you see tuple it is treating like a list? Don't think like it is a list. You can think the other way, like it is a array. In JSON, it is called as an array. Both tuple list are treated like that. So even if I give a string is a string. But in JSON, the one thing you need to understand is there won't be any single quotes. Every time there will be double quotes. In the same fashion, if I have booleans, if I have a true or a false, see how they are converted? True is converted to small true, false is converted to small true. Because that language, so instead of you converting all of them individually, the JSON module will take a help for us. It will, if I give like different integers and floats, it is taking as it is because numbers will be numbers every time. In the same fashion, You need to understand whenever you are working about this conversion. So it will have all these values. You see carefully. So whenever in a Jupyter notebook, if you want to create like this, we should specify. So did you see the codes, which is like a tilde operator on top? If I give this tilde operator, you can give like anything like this. And within that, maybe like if I remove this codes and I can give a tab space. So this is how you create a markdown file. In markdown file, this is syntax. Okay, what I'm telling here is that in JSON, it is called as an object. It is called as in Python as a dictionary. So we call it as that array. Here we call list or a tuple or anything. It is called like that. And if you like a number, it's integer. They call it as a number. So even if it is a float, also they call it as a number. So true means true, false means false. None means it's called as a null there. That's the difference. Now, if I take like any data correspondingly, so you can observe the same thing. So previously you have seen, right? I have taken like a JSON like a string. Did you observe the entire JSON as it is stored in double quotes? I'm storing outside things in a single quotes. Now, did you see? If I pass, okay, it's a markdown. If I convert to Python, it will change it. So did you see? So like that, it will convert from JSON string to this one. This process is called as a decoding. In the same fashion, if I have like something, JSON array. So is it a JSON array? So JSON array, it's converting directly. So it's like a Python list, right? So if I give like a codes, because like it should be a string. So if I give like codes, then it can read from it. So when it is, okay, when you want to parse your loads, if I do like a dump s like this, and if you want to load from it, that's also. In the same fashion, so whenever you want to dump, like any of the dictionary or something, you can see. You see, I have a dictionary containing all the values, how they are converting. And also, so whenever you are doing, you can also do like a pretty print. I told you that also. Yeah. What if, this is one of the interview question which was asked. When I do a dump else, will it dump? Yes. So similarly, if you do a dump for this one, you have Unicode character. Yeah, it will take as it is. So any code character it will take. And similarly, I told about the sorting of the keys. So whenever you give values, if I do sort keys, whenever it is dumping, it will sort by the keys. And in the same fashion, I can also specify separators. Means if I say separator, I give a mapping. So comma and this one. See, only those values you can see. Comma and colon are there. Means, did you see that you are telling that there can be comma, there can be colon also. Try handle. If I don't give this, what will happen? So if I don't give this, if I take the same example above, down, if I take it without this one, it will treat like entire dump directly. So if I give, it will be much more legible. In the same fashion, when I'm doing, I can pass like, indentation also, which I showed earlier. So when it is taking, how it will take. Lastly, so same like this, we have the last format called as a YAML. So EFG. So someone will call it as a YAML, someone will call it as a YAML. So YAML is like the most common format these days. So with the advent of Kubernetes and like Docker and others, if you see like you write docker.yaml file, kubernetes.yaml file, all these things. So here the syntax is very clean. Like in a Python, everything we need to have indentation and everything will have like this. So it will be like on top, you have the values within it. Under that, if you want to separate them like this. And similarly, if I give like one more YAML file, say maybe like I am taking items.yaml file. How this YAML file will be there? It is so like this. So all the files will be like direct values. Or similarly, if I have something like users. Okay, let me take one more example. Say like users.yaml file. So I can give something like this. Means for everything there will be indentation. Using indentation only you write anything. So yeah. So if you want to read or write the YAML files, how to do? So for working with YAML files, say I write like working with YAML dot ipynb. Okay. So IPython notebook. So same like this, how we have worked with the JSON. Here we have YAML file. If I say YAML, so YAML file also has a lot of attributes. But before that, you need to understand a bit about the YAML. What is this YAML syntax? How to work? And also, earlier Python YAML didn't come by default in the very first stage. So it was like recently only came like a built-in. Earlier we used to install it. So okay, so one second. Yeah, to understand it, YAML means YAML int markup language. So this, abbreviation is a bit confusing, but it's like a GNU of a Linux GNU. It's not Unix, not Unix like that it tells, right? Like that iteratively you need to think. Y stands for YAML, again int markup language. It says that every time I'm not a markup language. So just think like that. So YAML file. So it is human readable data serialization format. For humans also it's easy, missions also it is easy. Why this came means like certain serializations are good for missions like a XML. Certain things are very good for human beings, but they want like a mix of both. So to install it, they told this PyYAML is a module, but later on it came like in the latest versions built in. So if I say like to work on it, this is how port YAML, and if I say like help of YAML, you see what all things that we can do with a YAML composer constructor reading parsing. Means simple. So what all the typical actions you do on any serializer, the same things. But it has like a safe loader and others came. Over a period of times, a lot of maturity came in the YAML model. But initially when it came, it don't have much features. So just now we showed one of the YAML file, right? So to show like cat items dot YAML. So this is what you have, cat YAML file. Now if you want to read this file, how to read? So this concept has like, you need to understand every YAML file have these kind of things. Three data types. One is the scalars like strings, integers, floats. Next lists, then associated arrays. Only three data types it has. It's very easy. You need not know any language to understand it. So first I read the file handler. And if you want to load the content, I can specify that. Data is equal to, so the file handler I give, that's it. And after that, if I ask, hey, data, now did you see what's happening? So this is what more important. Every time this error will get. So for that, you need to pass the loader actually. Because earlier versions they gave like implicitly, but now they are asking it explicitly. Because there are different loaders like full loader, safe loader, like that. If you give that, then it works. So if I give that loader like that, it can read it. Similarly, did you see what all the values are there? It is treating like a dictionary key and values, because these are typically scalar values. Key colon value, like that. In the same fashion, I will go for one more, like cat data dot YAML. So did you see what all things I got? Now for the same thing, if I want to read, so in the same line, I have like multiple values within it. So if I see here, did you see that this is one set? This is another set. If I say docs, it is saying like it's a generator. Means generator containing multiple values. So from generator, if you want the values, so I can do like list of docs. Did you see what happened? Again, it threw an error. So what you are saying? Hey bro, you are asking a list on the closed values. Because I told any generator when you're reading, You should ask the values within it, not outside. So within it, if I ask, so see here, print of list of dogs, then it will work. If I close this one, you see now, all values you got. So the best way is like instead of doing like that, for us to better iterate, so we can take the same example. So instead of doing like this, uh, we can iterate so such that we can walk through it. Yeah, we can do like that so that you will understand. Now, did you understand now that whenever you're doing a separator, it will treating like a separate objects. Means you are getting a list of dictionary. This entirely is like one dictionary. So where this is a key and these are all values within it. So this is all values within it like that. In the same fashion, if you have like your own YAML file, how do you write? So for now, writing. So till now reading, now writing YAML file. To write a YAML file, the structure is very simple. So same like what you did. First, we need to take a list of dictionaries or whatever, because it's very clear to understand. And I can do a dump. So list, dump as, load as, the same structure everywhere. So whatever I have, it is doing. And similarly, if I have one dictionary containing different ways, and if I do like a dump as, so it will dump and it will give the values, the result. It is of type string. So anyhow, it's a string, so that we know. If I ask the value, you can see that. Did you see? Whenever I have. Now, if I give like a more complex, it can take it. So whatever you give. Maybe like I give something a structure within a structure like that. So maybe like I will give, say E is again a dictionary containing. So name, so good, something like this structure I have. Did I do clearly? I wrote some mistake. Oh, so I need to write a comma. Yeah. Did you see one level down? So similarly, if I do something the other way, okay. So if I like multiple levels, if I say like D also within it, one more brace, and if entire values like this. You see how I'm making the structure. So C, and this is like a D. Okay, sorry. So D is having like a tuple. Okay, I treat like one more braces. So I wrote my own complicated way of doing. So whenever you're writing, did you see tuple? It cannot handle a tuple by default. To show that it is taking a tuple, it is giving like this. So this is what you need to be aware of. So whenever you give like a tuple, now the assignment for you is like try all data types. Try all data types on it. So it means you need to have a list, you need to have a tuple, whatnot, everything you give a try. So you will understand. Next, lastly, how do you write to a file? The same thing. You take the content, you need to do a dump. If I do like a dump, then it will give. So, sir, when you do a dump, what will I get in the data? So nothing, right? There is no point of storing that if you want to store the result. Because when you're doing dump, nothing will come. So that will be a none result. So when you're reading only, we need to have, right? So that's what you should be aware. So I wrote it. And if I ask cat users dot YAML file. Now did you see whatever you give, you got it? So this is all about the YAML file. Similarly, so one more thing you can have, yeah. So when you're dumping, you can also give the options, like like sorting the keys, which are you have done in a theme, right? So like that, if you want to do sorting the keys, so we can specify that. So for sorting the keys, if I see here, when I'm dumping, so I can specify sort keys equal to true. So it will give the sorted keys at the same time. So it is loading the data, sorting, and retrieving. So sorted values, it doesn't make anything. When you're dumping, it won't give anything, right? So there is no point of doing. Yeah. Oh, it is doing once again. Yeah, fine. So in the same fashion, if you have a JSON and if you want to convert, so for that, so you need to go. So JSON to YAML conversion. So this is most important because whenever I worked with a CloudFormation templates in AWS, earlier they were in JSON format. I converted to YAML format. So like that, I wrote one program. The same program I'm bringing to your notice. So rather than writing like this, so I am going to the file actually. Maybe like I will say, so JSON to YAML, JSON to YAML dot py file. So this JSON to YAML file, I will write like this. You see example, Python JSON to YAML file, so .py and give a text file. So I am creating like a tool. So anything which comes, it can convert directly. So you see, like earlier, the loader is not mandatory, but now loader is mandatory. Loader is equal to YAML dot full loader. So fine. So what is this option saying? Like, hey, you need to give at least 2 arguments. If you don't give, this is a usage. You can replace it with a sys.arg, sorry, arg parse to make it much better. Now we see in the terminal, I will go. So first I need to have a YAML file. Maybe like I need to create a JSON YAML file in the current directory. So JSON test.json. Okay. So JSON test.json file I need to have. This JSON file first it need to parse and then convert, right? How do you convert? So I wrote a very simple logic. First it will open and given file it will read. That read file you are converting to Python format, right? That object you are converting to JSON by dump s, and that you are passing to the YAML. That's it. It's a very simple example to say. So to understand it, copy path, go to this directory. You see, so Python JSON.yaml file, JSON to YAML, sorry, JSON test.json. Now, did you see it created a YAML file? So the JSON file. So I created a tool for it. Now the assignment for you is make sure this tool, instead of writing this ugly documentation, use an arg parse to make it much easy. We should not give the documentation. It should take automatically, right? So that is what my expectation also. Okay. Lastly, after this YAML file, there is one more subpart called as TOML file. So like YAML, like a TOML. So, like TOML is like more important. You have GH. Yeah. So what is this TOML? How we can work with it? Okay. For working with TOML, you need to install the TOML file. TOML means what? Tom's obvious minimal language. So people, there is a person who wrote like that, but it is like nowadays more famous. So for the TOML also, TOML format, if I ask, so this is the Tom's obvious minimal language. So what is the point is, it is kind of like a mixture of configuration file and this YAML file together. So I think like adding YAML is a very bad idea. So it's like also minimal language. It don't have like indentation like YAML. It has nothing to do with YAML. It came like a configuration file. Next, I will show you the init file, config file and others. Those also will replicate like this. You see, whatever they give, they have a sections. Every section will have values like this and under that. And comments are like this. So typical YAML file. So I can take this same example and show. So we can save like sample.toml. So TOML file. So like this, I also can create my own file, but I need to create the parser, right? So how do you work with this TOML file? We need to import the TOML. So if I do like import TOML, so I can work cd dot cd efgh TOML If I clear the screen, Python is so and so. What is saying? There is no module named TOML. TOML didn't come by install. We need to install it. If I say pip install TOML file, then it will download it. So then we can use it. You see now it worked. Now, if I see the list of attributes, what all things we can do with this TOML file. So there are quite number of good things. So same like there, it also has its own way of encoding, decoding. So parsing and dumping. So most of the things people have followed the same structure. Load, loaders, dump, dumpers. The same structure everyone follow whenever they are creating. So if I create like a sample.toml file, so just now I created a sample.toml file, right? I am reading that file content. So file the content. So, and it is reading the content dictionary. You see, so did you see? Maybe like I will comment this DAR. So too many things. Clear the screen. Did you see? The entire content you got like this. Maybe instead of using a ordinary print, I will use like a p print. You know p print, right? So we can use like from p print import pp. So there are two things like p print and pp. P print will change the order of the values, but pp will give as it is, right? So if I ask it now, did you see the structure? So now you see the sample toml file in this side and this file. The comments were ignored. So what are you give? Title cam as it is. Owners. Owner is a section. Under owner there is name and date of birth. Under owner you have name and date of birth. And the date, it's like a date object. When it is reading, did you see it is automatically datetime object? Means you need not convert again. That's the advantage. In other file formats, if you have a JSON or anything, you need to parse, convert that, and then use it. Else you cannot use it directly. So similarly, database is one section. Under that you have these values. And you see this is a list. It came as it is. List of lists. You got it. So list of values with a key equal to value like that. Now this also came like a dictionary. Similarly, what our structure? You have a server structure. Under that, you know, servers.alpha. You see, it's like a subsection. Section under that subsection, right? This is how you need to write. So like that, it has read. So that is the advantage of going for a TOML file format. Similarly, so you can write any other file format, parsing the strings. So if you same like this concept, if you have a serialized file or a string, you can parse and read. If you want to read it, say parsing a TOML string. If you have a ready-made TOML string, you can read from it. So in Python 3.11 onwards, they added into built-in, but still in this particular code book, so Python version is like what? 3.10. That's the reason you are not seeing it by default. That's why I installed it. So in the latest versions, it is coming built-in. So if you have like a TOML string, how do you do load s, right? Load, right? So loading from it, load s. If I do a load s, I can load from it. If I say Python parse the string. So TOML, TOML lib. Earlier it is called as TOML lib. Now it is like TOML. So there was a lot of naming has gone into it when they are working on it. So earlier it was like TOML lib. Now it is TOML. So similarly, if you want to work with a string containing multiple values within the TOML, say like I have taken this example. This is very easy to remember. You see here, I have players and like players. So both are same, right? Did you see any difference? No. This is also players and this is also players. So when it is loading, it will load it. And it is same like, you know, under the same players, you have multiple values. So it's like a list containing multiple. Means you sometimes you can have duplicate also. So what happened is like if you go for an ordinary INA files, so there also I will show. If something is duplicated, the latest one will be taken. But this guy created very clearly so that like, you know, we can use in multiple also like that. And in the same fashion, if you want to load to a file and others also, we can specify. And even if there are decoding errors also, we can handle it. So with an exception handling. And in the same fashion, you can try different data types, not only the basic data types. You can parse, like, having like numpy arrays. So next I will tell what is a numpy array. So, but like numpy array means it's not like a basic data type. It is a type on its own. So if you want to work with that kind of things also, we can work. So using numpy, we created like a array. So that array also I'm taking. So it will be think like a list, but it's not like a list. That also we can dump. So if we can use a numpy encoder. So like that, they gave like different encoders for different things whenever we are working. So in the same fashion, we can work with different file formats. With this, we can stop. Next is like multimedia files. So then like configuration files and others we will see in the next class.